So, what an amazing day. I've been listening to speakers as we've gone along in this last half of the day. My talk will be entirely different. I'm going to use some specific examples for you as animal people, as zoo people. But a lot of what we're going to talk about today is more generic, and it's basically a mindset to take when dealing with the internet or dealing with unknown people in your lives. Now, first of all, what is skepticism? Yes, I used a Wikipedia article, okay? That was a great definition, okay? Skepticism is generally any questioning attitude towards knowledge, facts, opinions, beliefs stated as facts, or doubt regarding claims that are taken for granted elsewhere. In a nutshell, think before you believe, okay? That's what it's saying. It's saying have a questioning mind. As zoo docents, you probably already have a questioning mind. You're already thinking, what is ectomorphism? What is sexual dichromatism? What are all these things? You're already learning. You're already seeking knowledge. You can also do that with everything in your life. You can be reaching out for what are facts rather than just opinions or rather than just hearsay. Why be skeptical about the internet? Well, the fact is, in this room, you know these people at least in some way. You've gotten to know them personally. You've gotten to know how trustworthy or untrustworthy they might be. You can trust them when they come to you with a piece of information and say, hey, I found this, here's the source, I found this. There's a certain understanding amongst people who meet face to face. That's exactly the opposite on the internet. On the internet, you may not know who this person is at all. They may be entirely anonymous to you. All you're reading is something, a picture, a piece of text they've put on the internet. You really have to question that. You have to come to it with a skeptical mindset and say, I don't really know you yet. I may get to know you over time. And in fact, I have some fairly deep relationships with people I've never met in person before. I only know them over the internet. But it takes time, just like it does in person. People have many reasons for posting things online, and we're going to go into a series of those in just a little bit. Some of these reasons are bad. Some of these reasons are them trying to manipulate you in some way, to believe in some way, to act in some way. Be aware of that. Finally, bad information hurts everybody. It hurts you. You come off looking foolish or silly or otherwise. People come off looking uninformed, not very smart about what they're sharing. It hurts everybody to have this bad information out there, especially when other people are acting on this information as if it's true. You don't want to be responsible for that. You don't want to be responsible for someone hurting themselves, someone wasting their time and their money because of something that you posted that really isn't valid. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Important thing to remember, photography lies. Since the very first photo was ever taken, it has been manipulated, okay? Yes, they did it with paintbrushes and scrapers and other things back then, but the fact is they were really, really good at it because photography lends itself to that. For example, the Coddington Fairies. Lewis Carroll, the famous author, was involved in this. This is a whole series of books where the little girls were out in their garden and they took pictures of themselves with fairies out there, right? Faked, okay? Obviously, I don't need to say that, right? Very fun, very nice, very interesting, but photography lies. The Soviet Union was amazingly good at photo retouching. You notice there's someone missing in that second photo. There's a stairway there now, I think, or a wall, and he just disappeared. They tended to do that with cosmonaut photos a lot, which is what this is. And finally, here's something that I just came across this morning, and I had to include it. I've been to the zoo a lot. I've never seen a giraffe do that. These are a series of ads produced for the Wellington Zoo in New Zealand for their Chimpanzee Week. And I literally just happened across them this morning and included it in the talk because I thought they demonstrated so perfectly what can happen with a photograph. And imagine that getting passed around without any sort of surrounding information. People are going to be like, what the heck is going on with that? Okay. My goal today, my main goal today, is to get you to think. And to get you to think not just once, not just twice. I want you to think 3 times from this moment on before you hit the send button. Okay? do yourself, do your friends, do your family, do everyone on the internet a huge favor and think at least 3 times before you forward something on. You need to clarify, first of all, is this message worth anything to be sending along? Second, is it valid? Is it actually valid science? Or is it just something interesting? If it's something just interesting, cool, pass it along. It's fun, it's a comic, it's something to laugh at. Don't forward it as fact. There are many sites out there, which we're going to demonstrate as we get towards the end of my talk today. And by the way, if you have any questions, ask away. I can break off from the talk at any point and answer any questions. I may put you off and say, hold on, I'm going to get to that in a second. But if you do have any questions, let me know immediately. There are sites on the internet which can actually help us validate information, including Snopes.com and Hoaxslayer. Remember that unscrupulous people on the internet will say nearly anything to get you to take an action. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will do anything to get you to pass this message on. Be aware of that. Have a bias towards not passing something on. Restrict your forwarding. Think to yourself, I only get 2 forwards today, okay? I may have a whole stack of things I want to forward. I'm going to restrict myself to 2. What you'll find is the information you send out will get better, and conversely, you're subtly educating your friends and family. The information you get back will start to get better as well. Okay, it's not just you we're talking about, it's everyone in your food web, as Carrie drew on earlier. The other thing you can do is, instead of forwarding something as fact, if you have any doubts about it, it's okay to put it out there for discussion. It's okay to put it out there and say, okay, I just saw this. I'm not sure. I can't confirm it. Does anybody heard about this before? What do you think about this? Carrie, what do you think about the science behind this? You know, and you can put it out there as a discussion. That's a much better attitude to take when you're sharing something you're not really sure of. It makes you look smarter. It respects the intelligence of the people you're sending it to. It's just a great way of doing it if there is something that you're not really sure about. Because sometimes we do want to send it on because like, wow, if that's really true, that's really, really cool. But help me confirm it. I want to confirm it first. Why do people lie, ... on the internet? Okay? Pants on fire. People lie on the internet, and I'll put lie in air quotes. People lie on the internet for a variety of reasons. And I think it's very, very important for you to know the reasoning behind why people will put out spurious information, because it gives you a platform to start making your own judgments about things that you see flowing into your inbox. And what it will really make clear is there will be certain things that flow into your inbox you can go, nope, 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 because it will easily meet some of these criteria, and you'll know right off the bat it'll be obvious to you. And I think that helps people to understand a lot, because we all like to believe that everyone out there is good. Our friends are good, our family is good. We like to think that everyone has good intentions in mind. I'm here to remind you that some of the people on the internet, just like some of the people on the street in Los Angeles, do not have your best intentions in place, okay? You need to be aware of that. They are not bad people. It has happened to me. I have forwarded stuff along that I later found out to not be true, which is why these days I'm really scrupulous about it, because as someone in my position, I can't be doing that. I can destroy my career if I forward the wrong thing out. Typically, they just haven't taken the time to confirm the information or to go through this process we're going to go through today and validate what they're seeing. In some cases, and this is something I find in all aspects of life, some cases we want to believe too much. We really want that to be true. We want to believe that there's a penguin standing on the back of a polar bear with cymbals ready to go. You know, it's funny, but obviously not true. So we have to guard against that a little bit. That's one of those cases, if we really want something to be true, that's one of those cases where we really have to dig down deep and say, what's the validity behind this? Because I really want this to be true. I really want this endangered species to be coming back and not threatened anymore or whatever. but you have to confirm it first. And then there's those, which I discussed earlier, who simply forward everything. They get something in, and it goes right back out to their mailing list, and we all have those people in our lives. There will always be a certain percentage of people in the world that do that, and those we just simply have to deal with, whether it's unfriending them on Facebook or putting their messages to spam in your email system or whatever. There's always going to be a percentage of that. Sometimes people share stuff on the internet because it's funny. This is a very common internet meme of the walrus that eye has a bucket. The trouble being, in your world especially, people love to anthropomorphize animals. I would say, in my talk today, talking to you specifically, this is one of the biggest things you have to guard against and to think critically about, is anthropomorphizing the animals. They are not human. They may look like they're playing, but the fact is we cannot, using research, quantitatively define that they are playing in the way that we think humans play. Okay? Maybe they don't really want a cheeseburger. Okay? So guard against that. Understand when you get something like this is obviously a joke. This is obviously someone having fun anthropomorphizing animals or otherwise using animals, much like the giraffe climbing in the tree. It's shocking, it's funny, but it's not science. Finally, well, I got one more. This one is probably the biggest reason that people lie on the internet. And I know that being technically savvy and involved in the internet world and actually making money off my website myself, I understand how this works, but the average person does not. The fact is, if you can get a lot of people visiting your website, you can make a lot of money. Those little Google ads you see along the side, the banner ads you see on websites, those make money for people. So imagine they want to bring as much traffic, as many eyeballs to their site as possible. Some people will do that in unscrupulous ways. That's what you need to be on the watch for. They don't care about the science. They don't care about the validity. All they care about is your eyeballs on that page, clicking that ad. That make sense to everybody? Understand how that works? YouTube advertising is much the same way, just on the video world. If they can come up with a viral video that gets millions and millions and millions of views, they can make money on that video. They can make a lot of money on that video. So imagine there are going to be some unscrupulous people out there who are going to create very compelling videos that aren't really true because it's simply going to gather people's eyeballs. Okay? You are money to them. Like the microphone keeps hitting. Click-throughs are how they do that. You click on an ad, you click on a video, you click on a banner ad, pennies, dollars flow into their account, they get paid at the end of the month. If you don't do business on the internet, you may not know that, but that's actually what happens. So be aware of that. Finally, one of the things that these unscrupulous sites can do is actually try to infect your machine. Okay? If you've ever mistyped a web address in your web browser and ended up at a sketchy looking site that your browser immediately went, whoa, wait a minute, there's something wrong with the site. I don't think you want to go here. You know, sometimes you get a warning, sometimes you don't. It's probably because that site is actively trying to infect your machine with some virus or some piece of malware, we call it, or spyware. Again, why do they do that? Because it makes them money. In some cases, they're infecting your machine, and they might try to do it as silently as possible so that they can use your machine, they can turn it into what's called a zombie, and they can use your machine to send out tens of thousands of spam emails, which they then charge some other unscrupulous person for the right to do. Okay? In the worst cases, we're seeing a lot of what I call ransomware. This is where you turn on your computer, and all of a sudden the screen something says, your computer's infected. If you want to get it back, you have to pay me $10,000. Wow. Okay? Send your credit card or banking information here. Obviously, don't do that. Don't ever put the credit information. If you think your computer is infected anyway, do not enter any credit information, because what you're doing is that you're giving that credit information to an unscrupulous person immediately. Okay? Be aware of that. Be aware that that's why people will put out very popular sites That's why they will do things like typo squatting, which is when you type in, and don't ever do this, never type the word goggle.com into your browser. Trust me. Did it in front of a client once, we'll never do it again, even by accident, okay? That's called typo squatting, where they figure out the typos that people usually make, and they buy that domain name, and then they put a nasty site on that domain, so then when people mistype the URL, bam, they get sent to this nasty site. That make sense? Any questions on that? Because it is a little confusing, but that's what's happening when you mistype something and you get that really weird looking website that's not like the one you wanted to go to. That's what's happening. Someone's bought that site and is taking advantage of yours and my poor typing skills. Fourth reason, politics and religion. Two very compelling parts of nearly everyone's lives. Unfortunately, there are people out there who will say anything to further their political cause or further their religious cause. They will try to convert others. They'll try to reinforce a particular viewpoint. They'll try to counteract claims by others by using something that appears scientific but is not. Be aware, if you're seeing political or religious messages, nothing against political or religious people in any way, be aware that there is a certain portion of those people who will be using it in unscrupulous ways to try and get you to do something or believe something. Be aware. Everything today is just simply about being aware of what's going on out there. Number 5. Anyone ever heard of lulls? This is a really geeky term. I run into it all the time in my world. Lol, LOL, everyone probably knows laughing out loud, right? Oh, ha, 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 that's funny. Lol is laughing with someone. Ha, ha, that's a funny picture, that's a funny joke, whatever. Lulz is laughing at you. Lulz is doing something to make you look stupid. And there are people out there who actively troll, we call it on the internet. Think of Billy Goat's Gruff with the trolls under the bridge. They actively troll people just for the sheer joy it gives them. And I'm sure most of us have one or two people in our lives who, kind of act that life in our real life. They just love causing dissension. They love causing problems. They love making silly, stupid, or sarcastic jokes at other people's expense. In the Germans, it's Schadenfreude. Taking joy at someone else's demise or damage. In some cases, too, this also gives them a certain prestige within their own lulz community. There's a thing called the lulz sphere, which is kind of the world that these people live in. Be aware of that again. It's all about being aware of what's going on. You may know Nelson from The Simpsons, So that's what they're doing when they're trolling you actively with this bad information. So we've talked about a little why people do this. Now let's talk about what the warning signs are, okay? Danger, internet hoaxes ahead, okay? First and foremost, especially in your world, again, this is directed right at you people who are dealing with a very scientific world, there are no citations. There will be no footnotes. Footnotes, we don't need those stinking footnotes. There will be nothing that tells you where this information came from. There will be no credits on the photos. There will be no other mentions. If you search it in a search engine, the only mention you'll ever see is related back to the same thing that you just received. There will be no one confirming it. There will be no one denying it. It will simply just be out there. Another thing is there will be no organizational affiliations listed. There will be no associations. There will be no American Alligator Association stamp of approval on this information. Although some people, they might, if they're really creative, they might fake that on something. You have to be aware of that too. But typically there'll be no indication that anybody else reinforces the information in this particular email or message. There'll be no advisors. There'll be no advisory board for an association that might be listed. Look into it. Click through on it. The other really tricky thing is, if they're really good at this, they include just enough truth in there to make you believe the rest of it. Okay? Alligators, I'm just making one up based on Carrie's previous presentation. Alligators go into a dormancy in the winter months in which they burrow down to the center of the earth for the warmth given by the core. Okay? There's just enough, there's a little truth there, and then a wild exaggeration on the end, right? You can notice these things. And after looking at a few of these, they'll become more and more obvious to you. My goal today, again, is to get you thinking out there. Look for overly dramatic calls to action. You must share this with everyone you know, okay? If you ever see that in a message, don't. I will simply say that right now. Don't. Because more than likely, it is a hoax of some sort, or at the very least, it's an overinflated idea of what's going on, okay? The more uppercase letters in a message, like my first line there, the more suspect the message. Something horrible will happen to you if you don't pass this along. Some law will be passed some money will be lost if you don't forward this message. They're doing everything they can to get you to send this along. The more strident they are, the more likely it is a hoax, okay? That's another really good rule to apply to any of these messages. Something that just occurred to me that I did not include in my presentation is, and I'm going to stick it in here, look at how many times it's been forwarded to. Carrie sent me one, and we're going to see an example of it. And I'm not sure if I took all the quotation lines out of, where you get a forwarded message and it's pushed over and pushed over and pushed over and pushed over and pushed over because it's been quoted so many times. That's obviously another really good sign. If it's been quoted about 10 million times, okay, this is something going around the internet, okay? If it's just hauntingly inspirational, if it has lovely pictures and gorgeous photos in it, be a little suspect. The more pictures in it, more suspect it is. The more emotion involved in it, the more suspect it is. The more wild the claims. Carrie gave me this example of the eagle that it's basically a phoenix-like story that someone's applied to the eagle. The eagle gets to a certain age, it plucks off its beak, it plucks out its talons, it plucks out its feathers, and then it's reborn into okay, no. Very inspirational. It's an inspirational message about being reborn and being young again. And that's fine, you can take it like that, but please do not take it as science. Because the fact is, no, if the eagle did that, the poor thing would die, okay? It's not a phoenix. It's not a mythical bird that burns and rises again from its ashes. Take them as inspirational messages. Take from them what you can, but don't take them as science. There is a line there that has to be drawn. Even with that, even if you're more skeptical about it, some will take them as true, and it may be necessary for you, on occasion, as painful as it might be, to educate your friends and family about the reality of something they have seen on the internet. It's never pleasant, but it is worthwhile, and it is something you should do gently whenever you can. Oftentimes what I will do is I will find a citation that says why this isn't true, breaks it down nicely, and I will forward that to the person and said, I got your message, but I found this, and I think this is one of those things that goes around, okay? But again, bad information hurts you, it hurts them, it hurts everybody. It hurts someone who may stumble across that internet post later on. Do whatever you can to kill it off. Lots of links. I got lots of links in my message. The underline in most cases is blue, here they're gold. But, if you have lots of links in the message, it's more suspect. It's also dangerous. Most emails cannot infect you merely by looking at them, okay? That's kind of a common myth in the technical world. Just opening an email will get your computer infected in some way. Very rare that actually happens, and it usually only can happen if your machine is not up to date, if it doesn't have all its Windows updates or Mac updates or something like that, where there's a known bug that's still available for that to exploit. In 99% of the cases, the computer must get you to run a program of some type, okay? Clicking on an attachment that looks like something else, but it's actually something bad. Links are the way they can do that. Oh yeah, click here, download this and install it. Well, when you do that, you've basically given the person full rights to do whatever they want on your computer, okay? Be very careful about links like that. They're also often trying to classify their myth by linking you to other information about the myth. Well, the trouble is that other information is also suspect and may even be created by the person who started the myth in the first place. So beware of that. As we talked with the typo squatting earlier, links can lead to another type of attack, which is they'll take you to PayPal. Oh, look, it's PayPal. I'll log in. Uh-oh, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't PayPal. Little side discussion on phishing. Most attacks today are not virus infections of your computer, okay? This is the most common internet attack you'll ever face. Phishing is where a site masquerades as a real site and they duplicate it exactly. It looks really like the PayPal site or really like your banking site or really like AOL. AOL people get phished constantly and you don't notice it. Now, if you looked at the little URL bar that's at the very top of your browser that shows you what address you've gone to, it'll be obvious. It will not be AOL.com. It'll be something like barnyard.psi. There'll be some weird URL up there. That tells you someone's trying to phish your account, okay? If you get an email from someone and you're supposed to go to your banking site or your PayPal site or something because there's a flaw, your account's been broken into or disabled or whatever, don't click the link in the email. Go to your browser, bring up a new page, and go to paypal.com yourself. That guarantees you're going to the correct site. If you click that link, you have no idea where it's taking you, and in that makes sense to everybody? Okay? Don't get phished. Comes from the old, back in the days of modems and stuff, there were phone phreakers, and they used the PH for that because it was phone, and that's where phishing comes from. Just so you know there. You can look up more information on phishing online, of course. There's plenty of information explaining what it is and how people do it. What can you do? I'm giving you some as we've gone through, and I'm going to kind of take some specific examples for you. 99% of the hoaxes and bad information on the internet can be dispelled with a simple Google search. Okay? Just taking a few moments to search for that topic, that picture, that information on Google or other search engine will turn up whether something is a hoax, usually within about 2.39 nanoseconds. Here's 3 examples. Here's some examples of other search engines besides Google. Bing, Ask, Yahoo, whichever search engine works best for you. I'm a Google fan. I tend to use Google for all my searches. That doesn't mean you have to. That's just what I do. Here is a Google search based on that eagle myth we just talked about a little bit earlier, about the talons being ripped off and the beak being ripped off. All I did was type in those words you see at the top there. Eagle, inspirational, talons, beak, rebirth. Okay? All words in that email. Bam! Without even hitting return in Google, I ended up with a bunch of sources. Now, the first source there is actually one of the original sources for the myth. It's a slideshow that's on a slideshow site, a PowerPoint presentation that was used by someone as an inspirational message. Okay, so that's going, so that's probably where it came from, and someone just put it all in an email. The next site is labeled, I don't know if you can see the URL, truthaurfiction.com. Ah, good sign. Down a little lower, you'll see YouTube. Basically, when you do a search like this, it starts to turn up stuff that will tell you whether it's a hoax or not, because merely by the sites what it's listed on, it'll start to jump out at you. And also, you will often run into discussions about the topic in hopefully reputable sources where you will see a step-by-step debunking of the myth you're being presented with. Okay? Simple Google search. There's nothing special there. I simply type those words in. Here's another one about rat urine on top of soda cans. Oh my God, we're all gonna die. Okay, that's what those messages scream to me when I get them in my inbox. They're trying to make you afraid of something. In this case, you'll notice the top is a little different. This was me typing in to Google. Google has a thing called, what do they call it? Quick search or search as you go or something like that. Whereas you start to type in words, it'll start to provide results even before you hit enter. Just typing in rat urine, okay, started to get me results in my browser. Okay, that tells me that this myth is really prevalent. It is all over the internet, because in the way Google works is the sites that have the most links into them are considered to have authority, and they float to the top. Well, the first one there is a site we mentioned before, Snopes.com. It's a hoax debunking site. Bam! #1 search result for rat urine is Snopes. This is a big old red flag waving across your browser going, oh, okay. This is something that's going around out there, and it's gone around out there a lot. Important thing to remember, too, is you will often see these hoaxes come out in a cyclical fashion. Because one person will grab it, and they'll share it with all their friends, and they share it. And so you get this wave, and then it'll die down, and then someone else will pick it up, and all of a sudden there's a whole another wave. And so you'll often see the same hoaxes come back again and again and again. As you get more familiar with them, you'll know, oh, this is the rat urine hoax. Sometimes you'll see them mutate in just a small fashion. They'll change the story a little bit, and you'll see it come through again. So be aware, you're going to see these more than once. Looking at some of the other sites here, again, urban legends, another. If you see a word calling urban legends associated with some of your search results, that's, again, a good red flag going, okay, this is being debunked, right, actively debunked as an urban legend. Hoax Slayer. Mythbusters, the television show, actually did a whole episode, it's a segment, not an episode, but a whole segment on this myth, which shows you just how expansive this one traveled around the world. Again, the more effective myths and hoaxes are something that affects as many people as possible. Well, most of us drink something out of a can in our lives, and so in this case, they hit most of the world with their hoax, because everybody is involved in this activity. Now this one, Carrie passed on to me, is an example of not debunking. This isn't, in fact, they discovered through a new study that there was a new species of snub-fin dolphin. Now the trouble is, sometimes when people report science, mainstream media included, they're not really good at it, okay? And they will often make assumptions that the actual underlying study did not make. We just had a problem like that in the organic food world. Stanford did this lovely, very, very defined study about, is there any difference in the nutrients between an organic apple or a non-organic apple? And they said, no, at that very small level, they're basically the same. The news reported it as organic food no better than non-organic food, which you can imagine, uproar, huge, my mailbox filled up with stuff, because I also write about food and gardening and other stuff. That's the problem. And with the snub fin, that was actually part of the issue. The first reports of it were not really classified until we got the actual study. Until you drill down to the study, you may not have known exactly what was going on. Now the fact is here, you can kind of see it over here on the right-hand side. One of the nice things is this Google search actually turned up a picture, a listing with an official Latin name. Again, it's not for sure that is, but now you have something, not a common name, which can cause trouble oftentimes, but you have a scientific name you can then do further research on and look up more information about these. Also, looking through this list, one of the things you see is Australian Geographic down below. I mean, marine parks, we could kind of go, well, as we know, sometimes marine parks are not the most scrupulous about their science, but we could at least have another source there and go look at that. Marinebio.org sites are usually nonprofit sites, association sites, educational sites. So again, another good source. So this would give you information and say, okay, this one, right off the bat, I say, okay, this is looking good. Now let's dig a little deeper. The other thing you can do is take a line in a hoax email, something that looks weird or sounds weird, seems rather odd, especially if it has a grammar mistake or a typo in it. Select that line, copy it, and paste it into the Google search. In this case here, this is a line that's in the rat urine email. Okay? Again, bam! First hit in Google is Snopes.com about debunking this myth. Okay? Those weirdly unique, sometimes these things go through translation or they're written by English as a second language people, and so there'll be really odd sentences in there. Those are great for doing an internet search because they're very, very specific. They'll turn up stuff especially about that email you just got. Does that make sense? Okay. 3 tools, and a couple of these we've already talked about. Snopes.com. Now, in some emails, hoax emails, you'll see, oh, this has been proven. Look up on Snopes.com. And you go to Snopes and go, no, it doesn't. It debunks it entirely. They'll say that, again, just a little bit of truth in there to try and make you believe. So in that case, you'll want to go to Snopes yourself and do a search, again, using a line from the email, using particular keywords associated with that email to tease that information out of Snopes. Oftentimes, you'll see, I would say that if they mention Snopes.com in the email, it's probably a hoax because they're doing that to try and fool you. So again, definitely worth checking out in Snopes yourself. Another one is hoaxslayer.com. You may also find, as we did with the rat one, there may be a Mythbusters episode about it. There may be other videos in YouTube about it. There may be other sites which take on this particular myth. So please use those freely. You'll come to find you'll have your own favorites for debunking this information. And finally, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole as Alice did, using Google Scholar, which is the scholarly side of the Google search engine, is a great way of qualifying information because it is already pre-limited by Google to verified, authoritative, academic, scientific sites. It's not searching the whole web, it's searching verified, useful information for you, okay? Now, I'm sure every once in a while something might creep in there, but so far with Google, it is very, very good. Scholar.google.com is how you get there. I did a search on the snubfin dolphin, and instead of getting pictures and a link to a Latin name, bam, here are some down and dirty studies published in peer-reviewed journals, scientific journals about the snubfin dolphin. So you can go right to the source. In scientific world, going to the adjudicated papers is your best source. You're going and reading it from the horse's mouth, if you will, and that's always going to be one of your best methods of really digging down and getting the truth out of it. Because sometimes, as with the organic news article I just talked about, if you only read the headline, you were horribly misinformed. If you went and even looked at the summary of the scientific paper, it became immediately clear to you what was going on. So sometimes it's really worthwhile digging down, going down their rabbit hole. I'm not saying you have to read all 150 pages of scientific gobbledygook, which it is to me sometimes, but definitely the abstract of the article will give you a clear understanding of what's contained in the detail that follows. Finally, if you can't confirm something, don't pass it on. If you have any doubts about it today, everyone here today, I want to tell you, that would be my biggest goal to accomplish with you today, is if you're not sure, if you can't confirm it, don't pass it on. Because bad information hurts everyone. And if we can reduce the flow of bad information, it's going to benefit everyone. If you do want to discuss it, then send it out as a discussion. Hey guys, I saw this thing about these eagles and it looks kind of sketchy, but what have you heard about it? And in a group this size, and we're going to have another group tomorrow, right? So this is like double, going to be double. There's going to be someone in this room who's come across that. There's going to be someone in this room who has debunked that actively and can share that information with you. Talk with your peers. Discuss it with your peers if you want, but present it in that way as a discussion. You will come off as dramatically intelligent, which you all should, and people will begin to trust your judgment more and more as you move forward in your docent career, because they'll realize that you are serious about this. You're not just passing along anything that comes to your inbox. Don't forward it as a fact if you can't confirm it as a fact. That's why you should be an internet skeptic. You should read, you should think 3 times before forwarding something. Take the time to research it. Use Google, work Google. Google is your friend. Google is the best buddy you can have in your internet travels. And I'll amend that to say search engines are your best friend. They can help you so much. Use the hoax sites to declare whether it's a hoax or not. Evaluate its usefulness. Is this worth passing on? At least make sure it's funny, okay? If you're gonna, at least make sure I'm gonna laugh when I open it if you're gonna send me something. Only then do you forward it to others. Keep the good data flowing. Stop the bad. It's to the benefit of all of us. if you'd like more information, and we can answer some questions here as well, here's where you can find out about me, douglasewelch.com, me at Douglas E. Welch. Technology IQ is my technology blog. I actually write a series of blogs. I think I'm up to 5 now on a variety of topics. You can find everything, including some videos I've done on that main site. Please, if you have questions, we'll answer anything you have now, and if you have further questions after today, feel free to email me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer them. They may actually become blog posts, because when I get great questions, it's worth sharing them with the rest of the world. So if you do have questions afterwards, let me know. Other than that, I'm ready to say, what questions do you have on what? Yes, ma'am.
How do you get Google Scholar? Because mine just says Google.
What you do is in the address bar at the very top, type in scholar.google.com. That'll take you directly there. You may also notice that in Google, let's see if I can get back to a Google. Actually, I trimmed it off in these screenshots. There's a black bar across the top that has Gmail, Calendar, and a variety of other Google services. There's a little thing at the end that says more with a little down pointing arrow. Click that. Scholar will be listed in that as well. Okay? Next question. Yes?
If you do get taken to a phishing site, do you have like seconds before?
No, you're not. She said if you go to a phishing site by accident, do you have to get right off it? Is it going to attack you immediately? In most cases, phishers are trying to get your password and username. So you have to take some action. You have to try and log in. And then when you log in, you'll type in your username and your password. You'll say, OK, and it'll say, oh, I'm sorry, invalid username or password. Then, very sneakily, it sends you to the real site. So you just thought you typed in your password wrong. It's only later that you realize that, oh, everybody in my mailing list got a message that said, hi, I'm stuck at Heathrow Airport without any money. Can you please send me $10,000? We've all seen them, right? We've all seen them.
It just happened to one of our docents.
Principal from my child's school got hit with that from a Hotmail account. So be aware of what action you take. If you think the site is suspicious at all, close the window and go to the site directly by typing in the address. That's always your best bet. In the case of a typo squatting site that's trying to probe bugs you might have in your computer, there's not a lot you can do about that. The best thing you can do about that, Windows, Mac, Linux, whatever computer you've got, make sure your updates are up to date. Okay? You should be installing your Windows updates automatically. That will guarantee that the known bugs are sealed so that these sites cannot exploit them. If you do not install your Windows updates, your Mac updates, what you're doing is you're putting 6 deadbolts on your door and you're leaving the window next to the door wide open. Okay? You've not closed the known hole that exists that these sites are going to be trying to exploit. This is why, and I have to explain this to my clients a lot, this is why they can wake up one morning and suddenly have an infection on their computers, but I didn't do anything. That's right, you didn't. It was force-fed to you. Some site, you hit something, and it said, oh, look, the window's open, and went blorf, and shoved the nasty stuff into your computer because you didn't have the updates done. So it's not always, I don't blame anyone anymore when they get an infection. I wish it were certainly less, but I know now that it's not always an action on your part. Yes, ma'am?
My son always tells me when you're on a page and there's all this stuff on the right side, never click on the stuff on the right side because that can get you.
Not exactly sure what he's talking about, but all the ads. Okay, again, depending on the veracity of this original site you visited, you visit my site, you're going to see Google ads. They're safe. If you already hit an unscrupulous site, don't go any further, because then you could just be letting it drag you further and further down. But the important thing to do is to be able to recognize that as perhaps not the site you wanted or a hoax site of some sort right up front. Don't take further actions because then you could just give it a second chance.
It also says as you go down, when you're on Google and you have some information, the further down you go, the worse, the more skeptical.
They're not necessarily hoaxes the further you go down. What it means is, and this is a great kind of side question, in Google is trying to establish authority. And it does this in a variety of ways. One of the big ways it does this is the sites that have the most incoming links, the site that most sites link to, has a certain authority. Google says if other sites link to this, it must be good. Okay? There's other things that go into it, but that's one of the main ones. So what you'll find is the first sites are designed to be the best. As you go down the page, there's actually ways of seeing it. It starts returning search results that only match, say, 4 of the 5 words you put in the search, or 3 of the 5 words you typed into the search, or 2. So yes, as you go down into the various pages, the appropriateness of the link to what you're searching for is less. That doesn't mean they're more dangerous. It just means you're going to start getting weird results, like you're going to put an alligator and you'll suddenly start seeing links for alligator shoes because it's linking an alligator, okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And at the top, Google will also tell you when you do a search, it'll have certain words underlined, and it'll actually show you that I found results with these words, but this one, huh? You know, I didn't find anything that had everything in it. And it'll tell you that when you're doing those searches. It's in the back. Yes?
What do you arrange for Windows updates?
Windows updates are typically now, if you get a new Windows machine and you fire it up the first time, one of the questions that's asked you on setup is, do you wish to do automatic updates? And you should go, yes, please. In the past, and I'll explain it, in the past, you'll still hear people say this, oh, I don't want to do it because what if it's a bad update? The fact is the damage that can be done by a virus or malware infection is so much more significant than the trouble required in rolling out a bad update is such now that I just say automatic. I can roll out a bad update like that. I may not be able to get the virus off your machine. In about 1 in 10 cases of the computers I touch, we end up having to reinstall, wiping the hard drive and reinstalling Windows. So be aware of that. Yes?
Do I get a second chance?
Yes, you can go into your control panel, start menu control panel. This is getting really geeky in it. Start menu control panel, look for Windows updates, and you'll find the settings in there. Yes?
How can you remove something from a Google
Give me a
site?
wave on it.
Occasionally I'll put in my name and it'll say legitimate things about me, like talks I've given or something, and then if I keep going down, and sometimes it's a porn site.
Yeah. No, what they do is, the fact is, there's very few names in the world that are unique. I mean, I have a search on my own name, on Douglas Welch. Lately, and I don't know if it's because of my age, but I keep getting lots of obituaries in which Douglas Welch has died. And I'm like, yeah, those aren't nice to read. But that's the type of thing that happens. It's the fact that we're not, a lot of the same names come up again and again. And so oftentimes, too, if you've put your name in your web browser settings for autofill, they'll actually grab that name and they say, ooh, that's a common name. And they'll start using it in their pages, too. Yeah, but it happens that way. The fact is, we're not quite as unique as maybe we'd like to be sometimes. And sometimes they're using a name. You'll often see email messages that come in addressed from a friend or addressed from yourself. They didn't send it. The virus looked into a list of emails somewhere, grabbed some names, said, ooh, she's connected with that name somehow. Okay, we'll send her that name. Okay? They get very creative in how they do this.
Yes.
Are we done?
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me out today. I hope it's been useful to you. If you have any further questions, please go ahead and email me or check out the website. Thanks again.